These are the exercises from Activity E in Lesson 36, just walking through these translations. When you've got longer sentences like these, it's helpful to break them up as much as possible into shorter phrases. So a couple indications of new phrasing is something like the relative pronoun here. This is going to tell you that you've got a new relative clause. And so this relative phrase is going to, indicate that we've got a new clause here. We've also got, so you see the Vav consecutive here, that's going to begin a new clause. Just going through, you can find different ways to sort of break this up. So you can see here that you've got a construct chain, and then key is going to begin a new clause, stuff like that. So as we go through here in number 1, again, I'm anticipating that my first word might be a verb. And sure enough, I've got a 3-root stem that I recognize, shen lamed chet, shalach, and then we've got a nun hiric prefix and a shuric suffix. So this first word here, nish lahu, this is going to be the Niphal perfect 3CP form. We see the shuric here indicates third person plural, and in the perfect, masculine and feminine are the same ending. And then we've got the nun hiric at the beginning. When you first see this, you might think, well, is this nun hiric going to be the prefix of the imperfect, the cal imperfect, instead of the Niphal perfect? That's a decision you have to make. If this is the cal imperfect with the 1CP prefix, there would be no explanation for the shuric here. The shuric is a suffix that goes on the cal imperfect in the third and second person masculine plural endings, but not the first person common plural. You also know that it's not Niphal imperfect because the Niphal imperfect, the nun of that prefix, is going to be assimilated into the next letter in the form of a dagesh. So the only option that makes sense here is going to be the Niphal perfect 3CP form. If shalach means he sent, then shalahu would be they sent, and then the Niphal would be the passive, so they were sent. They were sent. Who were sent? If we had an explicit subject, so naming who was sent, we would expect it here. But this is mipanav. Mipanav is going to be the min preposition from. Panav, from the face of him. From the face of him is sort of a roundabout way of saying from his presence. And then we have ha-anashim. Now here, ha-anashim, this has to be functioning as the subject because there's no other function for this to fulfill. It can't be the object of any of these prepositions because the 3ms suffix here is serving as the object of this preposition. So that means that where we would normally expect the subject of the verb to come right after the verb, here this prepositional phrase actually lands between the two for some reason. So this would then mean the men, ha'anashim, the men were sent from his presence or from his face. And then asher. So asher, we have to figure out what is this modifying. Probably the men. So the men who, whatever comes after here, were sent from his presence. The men who, and then we've got lo plus a verb. So bit kashu is going to be from bakash. This is a PL perfect form. You can see the hirik in R1, dagesh in R2. There is no prefix on this form, and so we've got our 3-letter root with the shuric suffix, so that is 3CP. The men who did not seek, when we incorporate lo in here, did not seek or did not search for, did not seek what? Ate Adonai Elohim, the Lord their God, or the Lord God of them, all of the days of the lives of them. So all the days of their lives. All the days of their lives, is this, it doesn't make sense for all the days of their lives to be modifying this main verb. They were sent from his presence all the days of their lives. So it's probably modifying this relative, or this subordinate verb. The men who did not seek the Lord their God all the days of their lives were sent from his presence. I have to give Futato the benefit of the doubt here and trust that this is normal Hebrew word order, but this does seem very choppy to me. It does not flow very well. I'm not sure if that's just because we're trying to do too much in one sentence here, but the main verb, or I should say the independent clause here is the men were sent from his presence or from his face. And then this relative clause unpacks who these men are. So in English, I would probably start with the subject, the men, and then this relative clause unpacking which men, the men who did not seek the Lord their God all the days of their lives, and then the verb or the predicate, were sent from his presence. Let's see how Futato translates that. The men who did not seek the Lord their God all the days of their lives were sent from his presence. So there you go. All right. Number 2 here, we've got Vayehi. So Vayehi here, I just, as soon as I see this, I think to myself that Vayehi is setting the scene. It's setting the time of this sentence. So because Vayehi is the Vayiktol form, the Vav consecutive plus quote-unquote imperfect, that means it's going to be past time. Vayiktol is past time. All right, so you could translate Vayehi here as something like, it happened that, ... and then we've got a kaf preposition on a infinitive construct. This you might think is a Hiphil, except for the fact that this chapter came before the Hiphil, because you've got this hey-heric prefix. But remember, this is the same prefix that the Niphal uses. And so what you've actually got here is a hey-heric prefix for the infinitive construct, and then the noon of the Niphal has assimilated. So just like this is the, in the imperfect, you get the Niphal assimilating into R1. Same thing for the infinitive construct, and since the noon has assimilated, we use this hey as kind of like a placeholder for the heric. So this is an infinitive construct of lakach in the Niphal pattern or Niphal stem, and it has a 3ms suffix on it, and it has this kaf preposition, which is usually going to indicate sort of like contemporaneous activity. So to what is this action contemporaneous? There will probably be another verb right here, in fact, that we will be comparing it to. So it happened that as, or when, or while, these are all contemporaneous temporal translations of the kaf preposition here. Lakach, this is to take, or to capture, or to seize, but remember this is Niphal, so it's going to be the passive voice. So it's not he took, but he was taken, or it was taken. I'm getting that he or it from the 3ms suffix. Again, on an infinitive construct, you're not sure whether the suffix is marking the, what we usually think of as the subject of the form or the object of the form. It could go either way. So when he was taken, it couldn't be the object of a passive, though, and that's what Niphal is. So here this would have to be, it happened that when he was taken to, this is the preposition L, to the city. Okay, so it happened when he was taken to the city. Something else happened is what I'm expecting to come after this. And that's where I get my main verb, this Vayiktol form. Again, it's also Vav consecutive plus quote-unquote imperfect form. So the action of him being taken to the city is contemporaneous with whatever this main clause is. And so this main clause then, it's tricky with the double kof here, Vayikka vitsu. Vayikka vitsu. So what are we dealing with here as far as a root goes? Well, it's pretty straightforward. The shurek is an obvious suffix. That would indicate that the tzada is part of the root, and if the tzada is part of the root, beit, kof, all of these look pretty good as far as a root here. So these 3 letters here, that looks like my root. I've got a yod-heric prefix, and I've got a shurek suffix, and I've got a dagesh in R1, which indicate not only a dagesh in R1, but a dagesh kametz in R1. So this is screaming Niphal. So what is kavatz? Kavatz is, I think kavatz is collect, gather. Okay, pretty close. Kavatz is gather, so they were gathered. Who were gathered? Ha-zechenim, the ha-anashim, the ha-nashim, u-venehem, u-venotehem. So this is a long compound subject. Your subject starts here, and it goes all the way through. You can see all of these Vav conjunctions, and these shureks as well. These are Vav conjunctions. Remember, the Vav conjunction, when it's before a beit, mem, pei, or a consonant with a shabah, will shift to the shurek. So this is the elders, the ha'anashim, and the men, and the women, and their sons, and benot, their daughters. I'm saying there because of the ahem suffixes on b'nai and benot. So who were gathered? The elders, you could say the old men if you wanted to, but the elders and the men and the women and their sons and their daughters were gathered. Lo here, this is not the negative lo. This is the lamed preposition with the 3ms suffix, to him or to it. So it happened that when he was taken to the city, the priests and the men and the women and their sons and their daughters were gathered to him. Vayomer, so we've got a new clause now. Vayomer lahem, and he said, this is Amar, and remember we've got the Vav, Patach Dagesh here, indicates Vav consecutive on an imperfect / jussive form, so this will be past tense. He said to them, lamed preposition with 3ms suffix. Yehi, now Yehi is a form that you may recognize from Genesis 1. Yehi is the imperative masculine singular form of Haya. So Yehi kind of means be, all right? And then we've got Adonai imechem, the Lord, Adonai, with you. So how are we going to translate this? Be Adonai, the Lord, with you. Well, since this is an imperative, this is either... I'm sorry, this is not an imperative. This is a jussive. That's why I'm confused. It's a jussive in Genesis 1 as well. So here we've got Yehi Adonai imechem. Yehi is a jussive, 3ms form of Haya. So this is basically saying, let him be, let it be, may it be, expressing desire on the part of the speaker. The speaker here, who is presumably whoever was taken to the city, is saying, Lord be with you, or Adonai be with you. That would be the way to translate this here. So it happened that when he was taken to the city, the elders and the men and the women and their sons and their daughters were gathered to him, and he said to them, the Lord be with you, or may the Lord be with you. So again, this is one where there's a lot of word, like lo here is very far separated from vayika vitsu. But back up here, when you had the main verb, the prepositional phrase was right after the verb before the subject. So it's weird to me that prepositional phrase would be between the verb and its subject, but down here, the subject intervenes between the main verb and the preposition. So again, Futato knows Hebrew better than I do. It's just, I want to commiserate with you that this is some strange word order that English speakers are not used to. So it really pays to kind of break this, like I said, into different phrases, figure out what are my main clauses, what are my subordinate clauses, and how does it all relate together. All right, number 3, we have dirshu. Dirshu here, this one is a little bit tricky because you've got... I'm trying to decide... So let me just think through this with you. My first thought here seeing dirshu is I see the hirik under the dalet, and I'm thinking PL perfect. The shurik is a 3CP suffix for the perfect. The issue is there's no dagesh, and of course there's no dagesh because resh won't take a dagesh. But then I think to myself, why doesn't it lengthen? Why don't we have compensatory lengthening? Now, you don't always get that compensatory lengthening when you have a short vowel before a guttural that rejects a dagesh. You often do, but you don't always. So this might still be the PL perfect 3CP. But then I start thinking, well, what if this hirik is just... it was a reduced vowel, and then you had 2 reduced vowels in a row, 2 shavals in a row. And when you have 2 shavals in a row, the first one restores to a short vowel. Maybe that's what happened. Let's say it's like some sort of infinitive or something like that. The problem with that is the shurik doesn't make sense on an infinitive. It might make sense on an imperative 2MP. If it were an imperative 2MP, that's what it might be. Now, I haven't translated any further yet, but this might be a cal imperative 2MP. Or it could be a PL perfect. Let's go through here and translate and see what makes the most sense. So, darash is to inquire, or to, I want to say investigate maybe. Let me double check that one as well. Darash. Yeah, to seek or to inquire. So this could be, they were seeking, or, well, how do I want to say that with the PL? He doesn't give any extra significance for the PL. What if we do halat? Let's just do... Alright, so darash, these are all going to be cal, Niphal. We don't have a PL for darash. So, that makes me think that it is this imperative idea, cal imperative. So seek, someone is speaking to a group. Seek what? Seek the peace of the city of our God. Seek the peace. I'm saying the peace because we've got a construct chain here, and every word in the construct chain shares its definiteness with the absolute. You say, well, there is no article on Eloheinu, right, but there is a possessive suffix. And if a noun has a possessive suffix, it's by default definite because you're referring to a specific Elohim, namely our Elohim. So this is definite, which means every word of this construct chain is definite. Seek ye the peace of the city of our God, because here we've got barach in the the PL form. We know this is PL because our yod prefix has a reduced vowel, a shavah. We've got a lengthened, we've got a patak that has lengthened to a kametz in R1 because the resh has rejected the PL guttural, or I'm sorry, the PL dagesh. But we have the sere of the PL here. So, bless, because he will bless. Who will bless? Adonai. Adonai will bless. The Lord will bless. The Lord will bless what? Here we go, is our definite direct object marker. Do reshe. This is going to be a participle form? Holam. You would have a holam sere pattern here in the first and second consonants for the participle. This is cal active participle. So here it's saying seek you all seek the peace of the city of our God, because he will bless, the Lord will bless the ones seeking, the seekers, those who seek. Note that it is compact. It is construct plural, masculine construct plural, masculine plural construct. So he will bless the seekers of peace. Oh boy, again, oh man, it's not natural. It's not natural wording here for me. He will bless who? The ones who seek, the seekers of, the peace of, the city of him. It's not a fun phrase to translate. It doesn't sound natural, but that's what we've got here, because Yahweh, the Lord, Adonai, will bless who? Whom? The seekers of, the peace of, the city of him. Those who seek the peace of his city. I gotta think that Hebrew would say that a different way, but I don't know much. So, Venish Muru. So here we've got a new phrase here. We've got a new clause, I should say. We've got a vav. We've got nish Muru. So here we've got the noon prefix, because obviously shamar is our root. We've got the shuric suffix. So again, this noon hiric prefix, that is not going to be a cal imperfect prefix when you've got a shuric on the end. So this must be the Niphal perfect 3CP. And if it's the Niphal perfect 3CP, then we can only tell by context whether this is a vav consecutive, or a vav relative rather, or it's just a simple conjunction vav. And the way that context is going to tell us is, so far the verb preceding is in the imperfect. He will bless. So that's giving us a future time. And so that inclines me to think that this would also be future time, which would tell me this is a vav relative with the perfect. But let's translate it both ways to find out what makes more sense. So shamar is he kept or he guarded. Nishmaru would be they were kept or they were guarded. Mikol, from all of, O Yevehem, all of their enemies. So they were guarded is the perfect, if this were a vav conjunction. But if this is a vav relative, then it would be they will be guarded from all of their enemies. And that fits the context better here. So we'll treat this as a vav relative on a perfect form. Seek the peace of the city of our God, because the Lord will bless the seekers of the peace of his city, and they will be kept or guarded from all of Oyev is enemy. So Oyeve is enemies of. Oyevehem is going to be enemies of them, their enemies. And they will be kept from all of their enemies. Whew. Let's go back and look at how those two get translated. When he was taken to the city, so he does not translate the Vayehi part here. When he was taken to the city, they were gathered. Who were gathered? This is the subject. So he starts with the elders, the men, the women, and their sons and their daughters were gathered to him. And, or he says, then he said to them, may the Lord be with you. So that's pretty much what we had here. Down in sentence 3, we've got seek the peace of the city of our God. That's what we had. Seek the peace of the city of the God of us, or our God. 4, we said because Adonai, the Lord, will bless the seekers of the peace of the city of him. He says, those who seek the peace of his city, and they will be guarded from all their enemies. So again, pretty similar translation there. All right, number 4 here. This one starts off a little bit tricky. We've got Ho-Ru. Ho-Ru here. This is pretty clearly going to be some sort of perfect 3CP. Well, I shouldn't say perfect. There's pretty clearly going to be a shuric suffix here. That's what I'm getting at. So if we take that off, we can be pretty sure that Reish is part of the root. But then what is this stuff? It's not likely to be a hollow verb, because hollow verbs, well, I guess it could be a hollow verb in the imperative. But we've not seen a hollow verb hor, so it doesn't quite fit. What you may remember is that there was a verb that we had seen in our vocabulary that in the Hiphil stem, when you see a hey at the beginning of a Hebrew verb, you might just be thinking Hiphil. In the Hiphil stem, it actually takes a very similar form, namely it's horah. And what has happened here is we have the verb yod, resh, hey. Now this is not the same as yod, resh, ayin, yahra, which means he feared or he was afraid. Yahra, in the Cal, it just means like to throw or to shoot. But when we put this in the Hiphil, this actually means he taught. All right, and so what happens here is we add the hey for the Hiphil, and then this one yod vav, it's going to it's going to revert to its vav form and become a holam vav. We looked at this in the one yod, the section on Hiphil in the one yod. So here we've got ho, ra, so this would be a kametz, but we've also got a shurik here, which indicates 3CP. So this would be, is this perfect or is this imperative? Okay, so it looks like it could be perfect. You get the ho prefix on the perfect. What about the imperative? And you get it on the imperative. So the fact that it does not have the hirik yod here, that may indicate hang on now, one yod, one yod vav. Okay, so, but there is no hirik yod. So is this, what would the difference in form be between the one yod vav perfect? I think they're going to be identical, because here we've got hoshivu, that is the one yod vav perfect 3MP/3CP, hoshivu, but imperative is also hoshivu, so I think these two forms are identical. So if that's the case, let's see, we don't have an example here, it looks like. Yeah, here's teach. Okay, so this could be they taught, or this could be teach. B'nechem, so teach whom? Teach your sons. Et mitzvot. This is mitzvot, not mitzot. The way that you know that this is a vav plus a holam and not a holam vav is that the tzada has its own shavah here, and tzada can't have two vowel signs. So et mitzvot, teach your sons the commandments of the Lord, and they will remember them. They will remember, and they will teach their sons and the sons of their sons to know. This is yada, lamed preposition, one yod vav infinitive construct, loses the one yod vav and gets the patak, or the segel segel tav pattern, but here the ayin requires the segel segel to shift to patak patak. To know the Lord and his mitzvot, his commandments. So this all seems to be future, especially here, they will remember. So that makes me think that this is not perfect, but this is imperative to MP. So teach your sons the commandments of the Lord, and they will, they will be remembered. So this is a Niphal. This is 2FP, so it's for mitzvot, and the commandments will be remembered. And they, your sons, will teach their sons and the sons of their sons to know the Lord and his commandments. Let's see how Futato translates this. Teach your sons. So teach your sons the commandments of the Lord. Okay, and he's going to interpret this vav conjunction as purpose or result, so that they will be remembered. Teach them in such a way that the commandments will be remembered, and so that they. Now here, since this is a cow. No, this is a Hiphil. So the subject here has to be sons, masculine plural, and so that the sons of you, your sons, might teach their sons and the sons of their sons, which is their grandsons, to know the Lord and his commandments. So it's a pretty heavy duty. Hopefully that's helpful. If you have any questions about these, feel free to send them to me. But like I said, hopefully that helps.